Hey guys, welcome back to the Book Haven with Rachel and Raven. Happy New Year.
Yay!
Yay! Woo! I feel like we need
Confetti?
some confetti and some poppers or something. Today we're going to discuss a fun topic about Bible reading.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yearly Bible reading. So the bookish question is, how many times do you think you've read Genesis? Because you always, I don't say all, I guess not always, but most Bible reading plans have you start in Genesis. And most of the time, what is the book that people
fall off the wagon?
Yeah. Is it Numbers? I feel like they've, there's statistics that say it's once you get to whatever book.
Yeah, Numbers is hard to get through. Okay, how many times? I don't know. Probably at least, 15?
Yeah.
Maybe 20?
Yeah. I know. It's probably a good guess. And then I know for us, for homeschooling, once you do the year of, what is it, ancient times or whatever you call it, you always start with Genesis too.
You're always reading Genesis.
I don't know how many times I've gone through Genesis.
Yeah. So what book do you feel like it is for you that you have fallen off the wagon?
I mean, Numbers is pretty rough. And I mean, for people who haven't read Numbers, it's just the genealogy and the numbers of they just counted everything, the number of people in each tribe, and so you can get kind of bogged down.
I also feel like once you get to Chronicles, so if you make it past there and then you get to Chronicles, it's a lot of rereading. Some of the same stuff you've already read.
There's a lot of challenging books right there at the beginning that are kind of like a hump to get over.
Yeah, for sure.
So that segues into what we wanted to talk about today, because it is a new year and people are making New Year's resolutions and whatever. Hopefully, one of the ones that you're doing this year is to read through the Bible in a year or two or however many years you need. But because reading in one is challenging. It doesn't mean you can't do it, and you definitely should try.
Yeah.
But I know there are plans that do it in 2, and that way it's not quite as much reading.
Right.
Okay, so several years ago, you and I read through the Bible with Tara-Leigh Cobble, and hers is called the Bible Recap, right?
Yeah.
So she has a podcast that she did. I don't think it's still new coming out.
I think they just
republish it. Yeah. And so there's a podcast episode that you can listen to every day of whatever it is you were supposed to read that day. And she kind of goes more in depth, or maybe especially in those challenging books like Numbers and stuff like that, she kind of this is why we're reading, or this is the connection to this, and kind of helps you kind of stay engaged more.
Yeah. She's also kind of I feel like a cheerleader too. So it just kind of helps you keep going. And she's reminding you of the point of why we're doing this. So that was it was very helpful, especially that first time going through it.
Yeah.
With her and listening to the podcast and everything. So that was it was very helpful, especially that first time going through it.
Yeah.
With her and listening to the podcast and everything.
So my mom has done it now several times, and every year she gets new friends to do it with her. It's really cute. But they really enjoy that. She actually has a book of all of the, I don't know if it's, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, so it's just a transcript, I feel like, of the podcast. Yeah. I've seen it. It's very
my
very
mom has
large.
One. Yeah.
And I've considered getting that, but I felt like the podcast helped break up. I wouldn't want to sit down and read
some more. Yeah.
But some people like that. I know people that use that.
Yeah. I just thought if you didn't want to listen to it. So the joke that my kids have with me is that because I listened to that podcast for a year. And so the kids would walk in and I'd be listening to it. And she always starts with the, "Hey, Bible readers."
It's Tara-Leigh Cobble.
And so my kids are but I, of course, speed up the podcast. So she sounds like a chipmunk. So it's "Hey, Bible readers." And
they're
so
really
kids
short.
Just joke.
They're really short episodes.
I know, maybe
episodes. 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't think
they're not that long. No. Yeah.
what was I going to say about that? It's not Bible teaching,
No.
to be clear.
Yeah.
It's literally commentary and context. Is that what you would say?
Yes,
It's
for sure.
more context.
And I don't know that I would even say that it's very, like she does not get in the weeds of like
No.
denominational things.
No.
So, I mean, as long as you're a Christian, I think you could kind of get on board with, and if she says something that you don't quite agree with, you just go, well, okay. But there's not a lot of, teaching per se. It's more
even,
explaining the context of this story, or like what else was going on in the land around wherever they are, kind of thing.
Yeah. There's no opinion in there either way on anything. And I think it is interesting for her because doing the podcast, because she's been to Israel so many times.
Yeah,
so these are really real places to her. And so she's able to relay that, I feel like, in the podcast.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and there's also, so this, you can follow along on the, with her reading plan.
Yes.
On the Bible app.
Or, on a Bible app. Or you can go to her website and you can print it out.
Okay.
If you want to do it that way. I think she might even have like some bookmarks or something like that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So that you're not having to get on. So the nice thing about the Bible app is that you can add, so when we did it together. I could see where you were.
Yeah.
And you could see how far I was behind too. And you can leave notes on there. We never did, but or
we
not regularly
on a daily basis.
Yes, we did. We
read.
But we did that more Polo, I think. Like on Marco Polo.
Yeah.
But some people actually use the comments and whatever on the Bible app thing. But the Bible app thing is a nice way to keep track of where you are, like what day you're on.
And someone else's
can see how far behind
it can help you. Like I've tried to do it by myself and I haven't done it. Like honestly, for this year, I'm struggling.
Yeah.
But I think that also goes for like to say, I just want to say and encourage, you don't have to keep, like if you get off track, you don't have to keep stopping and going back
restarting.
To Genesis. And if it bothers you that you're like 10 days behind or whatever, you can always do the catch me up little, I don't know what you call it, in the app.
Yeah.
And it's just going to put you back at, you won't be behind if it bothers you to look at that, because honestly, reading the Bible, if you're reading the Bible, you're not behind.
Right.
Unless you're trying to be super rigid or strict about.
But I feel that's when people are going to bail out, is when it's like you're trying to be too hard on yourself.
Yeah.
And like realistically, life happens. There are going to be times where you get 10 days behind. And sometimes when that would happen to me, I would, because I was one of those people where it's like, I've never read through it all the way. I want to do this. I'm holding myself accountable. But there were times where I would sit, and also on the Bible app, you can have it like read to you.
Yeah.
And so there were lots of times that I would have to sit and like just listen to that for like, I'm not joking, like 2 hours trying to catch up. Because I didn't want to skip. But yes, you totally, if it's between you stopping or skipping ahead, just skip ahead, because it's worth getting to whatever you can get to versus just saying, oh, I can't do this.
Not skip ahead, but like just keep reading.
Jump ahead.
What do you mean? Jump ahead.
Well, I mean, like to catch up to where like but also the podcast is like, she has them all out. You're not missing, like if you get behind, quote unquote, you're not behind from anybody except yourself.
Right.
So like there's really no reason that you have to jump ahead other than if you're keeping track in the Bible app. Yeah.
And I don't know. I've read through twice now. The first time with you, and then I read through a second time. The second time, I didn't do it in a year. It took me longer.
Yeah.
So just that encouragement just to keep going. If it takes you 5 years, then
that's better than
did
nothing.
it in 5 years. Yeah. Yay.
And there's also because there's something to be said too about, I know a lot of people don't like to say like, oh, I'm going to do it in a year, because then you are rushing or whatever and not stopping and stuff. So, I mean, there are lots of ways to do it. I think, though, if you've never read through the Bible completely, I think this is a good challenge to say, like, this year, 2024, I'm going to read through the entire Bible for like one time.
Yeah.
And then because it's sadly in our culture, we do not regard this as something that needs to be done
Right.
often and regularly. And
Yeah.
so I don't know. I just can't say enough how I think everybody should be required to do it.
Yeah.
Multiple times, but you know.
Right. Yeah. And maybe even if it's hard for you, because I know that for me, I grew up reading KJV only. And
Which is
that's
King James.
Yes. So that's the only thing I knew, but I kept trying to do that. But when I finally made it all the way through, it was through ESV.
Yeah.
What did you do?
Yeah, ESV.
You did ESV?
Yeah.
And it was just, I don't know. I'm not going to say it was easier, but it was easier and helped me understand and like get over those hurdles of and I'm not knocking the King James Version. Much of the scripture that I have memorized is King James Version, but it was very helpful for me to switch up my version to get through the Bible.
Well, and you do have to, like PSA, you do have to be careful with what version you're consuming.
That is true. There are some.
Yes, there are some that are no good.
You can DM us.
Yeah. But I guess ones that we would not say are good. But yeah, it definitely you have to find what's going to work and figure out what's going to work. But it's okay to do hard things and to push yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And what I was going to say too is, so the Bible app has that, but there's also another app called Dwell. They have a Bible reading program. Mm-hmm. They also have a podcast. Like there's a lot of different groups that do it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there's probably groups that do it denominationally. I just don't know. But again, I feel like Tara Lee's version is very like palatable for pretty much everybody.
It's chronological too.
Yes.
So you're not reading Genesis to Revelation.
Yes.
Like you get part, I don't remember what chapter it is, but in Genesis, and then you jump to Job, right?
Yes.
So yeah, hers is chronological, and I really like that too.
That's a good thing to point out too, because I also have had trouble. So John MacArthur has a year in what is, I can't remember what it's called, but Bible in a Year. And his is the kind where it does like one Old Testament and one New Testament. Mm-hmm. And so you're kind of into, and I have never been successful with that.
No, I don't think that I've been successful in that, because I think why I was successful in completing the Bible recap plan is because I got to see the story as a whole.
Yeah.
And what that did, I think, for both of us is created this longing for Jesus. Like we were ready to get there by the time we got there. And we appreciated where we were when we did get to the New Testament. And it just made, I don't know, it just made things make so much more sense.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to.
No, I think that's
really
good.
describe that.
Because that's, yes, I 100% agree that I think that was the way to, I feel like, again, if you're doing it for the first time, for sure, that seems like the best approach. Mm-hmm. Because yes, you're seeing it progress, and then it makes sense. Like, because I mean, for me, like reading all like Judges and all that kind of stuff, you're like, why do these people keep doing this? Right. You know, it gets super annoying.
Why do they matter?
But like you said, it's just like over and over and over again. And then you finally get to Jesus and you're like, thank you. Like, because I can't take this anymore.
Yeah. And then you appreciate the sacrifice.
Yes.
Because you saw, all those years.
Well, and it's just like reading a book. Like you wouldn't appreciate the story if you started halfway through. Even if the last half was amazing. Yeah. Like you still wouldn't appreciate it if you didn't read all the suffering leading up to it.
Right.
So
yeah,
that's my 2 cents with that.
I agree with that.
So then, so obviously we highly encourage everyone to try to do that if you haven't, and let us know if you do. I'm starting it again this year. Last year I tried to do it with my kids and I was not successful. So I'm going to do it this year on my own. And if they want to do it, that's great. But
I'm just going to keep going.
Yes.
Because I'm on day, like, I don't even know what day I'm on. And I'm just going to keep going.
Well, the nice thing about like doing it not on the Bible app is really that it doesn't matter whatever day it says. Like
exactly.
when you're listening on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast. Oh, I think she even has it on YouTube now.
She does,
like a
actually,
video.
yeah.
Yeah, if you want to consume it like that. And we'll have links below. But what I was going to say is you just like it's just going to automatically play the next one. And it'll say like what you're supposed to have read for that
Right.
day before you watch the video. And you know the other good thing that I like is that she links to the what are those videos called?
The Bible Project.
Yes. And I have to
visual.
say, I don't always agree with everything they say. Yeah. But it is a nice overview of what the book is going to be about. So it's just like this cartoon, whatever. Like this is the book of Job, and so it kind of walks you through all the.
They ran a deal on that website here a while back, and I got the printed version. So you have, have like it's in a book. It's like in this big book, and you can open it up. So my idea with doing that, because it was super cheap, inexpensive, because it's very high quality, but was to do that with my kids, and then like as we would read a new book. But now it's just a resource that sits on my coffee table, and whenever they want to look at it, they can. But I find that very helpful, and it would have been very helpful all those years I was trying to go through the Bible to just understand.
Yeah, that's a good segue because you also need to get a good commentary.
Yeah.
If you are a seasoned Christian, you should have at least one commentary. Yeah. And a commentary is like, how would you define a commentary?
I think it needs to come from a very credible source, which I would recommend John MacArthur. Yeah. Even though I don't agree on everything with him. But I feel like he's very seasoned and he's got a lot of wisdom. And so I tend to, take what he says to heart. But yeah, he has a good one. I don't even know who else.
I think R.C. Sproul has one.
This version. Ligonier Ministries. Yeah,
they have one. So I have the Reformation Bible that R.C. Sproul's group, whatever, puts out, and in that Bible it has commentary in it. But I also have the John MacArthur one, just to kind of have different sources.
We have the John MacArthur, and I like that one. If you get his Read the Bible in a Year, like he has a Bible he has the commentary in there.
Yeah.
Which is good. I've tried that before too.
Yeah. I had that one. I just, like I said, but I find that the commentaries are good because you can be reading and go, this really just doesn't make sense, or I don't understand the point or whatever. And so you can go look it up in the commentary and find way more information. It's like an encyclopedia, really. Yeah. Of course, it's someone's opinion. It's not inerrant like the Bible, but a lot of times those kind of help make connections that maybe you're not getting. And again, all the connections that you make just make your relationship that much deeper with God and more understanding of the word. Right. So anyways, so we talked about MacArthur. So aside from reading the Bible in a year, I think it's also worth mentioning that you can also pick up regular literature to help grow in your spiritual walk, however you want to say it. So MacArthur has a lot of, I have only read a couple of his books.
I definitely listen to him more than I read.
Yes, he has the Grace to You. He's been at his church forever.
Yeah.
I just watched the documentary. Did y'all go see it? The one about when they tried to close his church during COVID.
Oh wait, no, I forgot about that.
I'm sure it's out now.
Okay, I'll have to look.
I can't think of what it's called.
I was so excited about that too. It totally fell off my radar.
It's very interesting though. So it's all about his church and how they're in California. So the state told them they had to close and kind of how they went through that process. But it was very interesting. I just started reading his 12 Extraordinary Women of the Bible.
Yeah. I think Katie's read that.
So
I know my boys have definitely read the men version of that.
yes.
Because I think there's 2.
There's 12. Well, he called it 12
His
ordinary men.
Maybe
Because
I'm
it's
thinking
all
of
the
a different-
disciples.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of a different book. I think they've read that one, but
Yeah. So he has a lot and kind of like a wide array of topics, like very interesting. And I feel like he is a trusted source. You might
Yeah.
not agree with everything,
Right.
but I do think he is a good godly man.
yeah.
And then in that category too, R.C. Sproul, who is
Yeah.
no longer with us sadly, but he has a lot. I would say more though his are more I don't even know what you would call it, like what the difference is.
You mean between their belief system?
No,
between the
no.
two?
Like just between kind of their 2 books. Or their not their 2 books.
Commentary.
Like how I feel like MacArthur does more books that kind of are just a really wide array of topics.
Mhm.
And I feel like R.C. Sproul has more
His are very strong theological
yes.
books. Yeah.
Yes. And like relationship with God and with the church,
Mhm.
but not really outside of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't think that that's a good way to explain it. But both of those, you could read either one of those. I would put R.C. Sproul in the category of like C.S. Lewis, like those kinds of, like his
Yeah.
theological books.
Yeah.
Um,
I would agree with that.
and so, yeah, there's a lot of good stuff that he has. I will say, I think R.C. Sproul is a tad more drier. Like it reads more like a textbook kind of versus, I think MacArthur just has kind of quirkier personality. And so
Yeah,
I think that
for sure.
comes out in his writing a little bit more, but both good.
Yeah. I think they're both good. Yeah. I listen to a lot of John MacArthur sermons. I just find them very, I don't know. I like his preaching. He's expository. So he's preaching, verse by verse,
Yeah.
not this topical stuff, which drives me a little bonkers.
Yeah.
And he gives a lot of context to it. And I don't know. I just feel like I understand better.
Yeah.
And he's preaching from the word, not just standing up there
Yes.
giving a TED talk.
But also, I have heard that a lot of people, which I think I might try this year too, because normally, okay, so one of my goals, sorry, I'm all over the place. One of my goals this year is to walk every day. Is that going to happen? Probably not, but I'm going to give it a really good shot of walking every day. So, but instead of listening to a book, I thought I might try to listen to a sermon.
Yeah.
And I have heard that that's very, I don't know, encouraging.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I did that a few times. I walked. I'm just kidding. Like I walked and listened to a sermon. One, because I need to like put my phone away and be able to breathe the air and see the things and walk and be aware of my surroundings.
Yeah.
But listening to a sermon, I mean, isn't there some kind of scientific whatever that you absorb more information when you're walking,
when you're stuff.
moving,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
So maybe I will do
well,
that
and we
get
used to walk and call each other.
Yes. Tell me all the drama that's happening at your house. We have an hour.
But
well, we used to take turns. We used to take turns on. All right, tell me what you got.
Yeah. We've got 30 minutes. So yeah, that's one of my things that I might do. But anyways, okay.
Actually. Okay, so the next person that we have on this list is Bonhoeffer. I'm a huge Bonhoeffer fan.
Do you want to like explain who he is?
Okay, so Dietrich Bonhoeffer was he a priest or he was a preacher in during World War II. If you've never read his there's a biography by Eric Metaxas.
Yes.
That
That's
I have
huge.
read. It's ginormous. They do have a young reader's version if you want to just, shortcut it a little bit. But I would highly encourage you to read about Bonhoeffer and about his life. You've actually read one of the books that he's written.
Yeah.
I feel like I listened to that one, but I might not have. What was it called?
It was Life Together, the classic exploration of Christian
and he
community.
wrote that while he was imprisoned. And then he was actually executed right before the liberation, right?
The Nazis. Did you say that?
Well, I said World War
II.
II.
Okay.
But yeah, he
because he was in Germany.
Right.
Yeah.
He was in Germany, and there were a group of preachers. I keep wanting to say priests, but I don't think they were priests.
I don't know.
But anyways, they were trying to get people to see that the way that the country was going was not it's not a good way. And he had an opportunity to go leave and come to America, and he chose to stay and to continue to preach the gospel and stand against the tyranny. And then he was imprisoned, and he ended up dying. But I feel like one thing about Bonhoeffer that I appreciate so much is that he didn't use his prison time I'm sure he had down days, but he spent his time writing.
Yeah.
Reminded me of a lot of Paul.
Yeah.
And he wrote really good stuff to the church.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
That probably needs to be looked at.
Yes.
Be reminded.
Yes. The next person we have is Alisa Childers, which we just, not that long ago in December, had a podcast about her. Well, not about her, but we included her in a list. Yeah. She has two books right now. There's another one coming out. It might be in February. The deconstruction one.
Alisa,
yes.
Do you want to be on our podcast?
She's probably too big time,
I don't know. She might.
Yeah. But she has a lot of good. She was a Christian music artist. She left that and kind of has had her own Christian walk and dealing with the deconstruction movement and all that stuff. So she has two really good books right now. The third one will come out. And then she has a podcast. Mm-hmm. She has a YouTube channel. We'll link all this stuff down. But she has a lot of good interviews and stuff. Really, really edifying stuff.
Very edifying. She's very humble in her approach. I know some people who kind of sit in that same seat, I guess, as her, as kind of speaking truth. They can come across really harsh.
Yeah,
I just don't feel like she is so. We've actually met her. She's so sweet.
Yes. She's a regular.
Friends.
Yes.
We could be friends with her.
She's just a regular person.
Yep.
Okay, so then the next person
is the person who was totally fangirling.
Yes.
Anyways.
Yes. We don't talk about that. Okay. So, but the next person is Elisabeth Elliot.
Yes. Okay. Now,
so you can go off.
One thing I'm going to say about Elisabeth Elliot is I do not believe everything. She can be very hardcore on a lot of the things that she believes. But she has a lot of wisdom, and you can glean a lot of wisdom from reading her stuff. There are some of her books that I would recommend with lots of caveats, just because I would say a lot about raising kids and things like that. She had one daughter, and I don't know. I just feel like some of her parenting advice comes across as very, very brash, maybe.
Yeah.
And it's really hard for me to take stuff from people that.
Well, having one kid versus 4 kids is definitely different.
Yeah. But as far as her biblical wisdom, her theology on suffering, her belief in God's sovereignty and how she approaches that, and I do appreciate that. And I do feel like she's very honest about her own struggles, and a lot of the things that she shares. So it's not like, yes, you all come to me for wisdom,
Right.
because
Yeah.
I have got it all figured out. I do feel like she's very honest in her own shortcomings, and
Yeah.
that's very encouraging to me.
Yeah.
And I also appreciate anybody who has a strong theology in suffering, because I think it's easy for us to fall into this camp of comfort and,
Yeah.
especially
Or like
now.
we suffer because we did something wrong. Like it's
Yes.
punishment for something.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. She helped me so much, just kind of understanding my own life in the light of
Yeah.
God's lens,
Yeah.
and how he sees the picture and he knows what's best for me. And the things that he allows in my life for me, it's only, how do you say that? Like, it's only for my best.
Yeah.
And and he sees the whole picture. I don't see
Yeah.
the whole picture. And so that was very helpful for me, because
Yeah.
I think in a lot of ways, I was always like, well, what did I do to
Yeah.
deserve this?
Yeah.
Well, no, it's just what God
Right.
had for me.
Yeah.
And so she talks a lot along those lines, and that's what I really appreciate hearing from her.
Yeah.
Not necessarily her parenting or her dating recommendations.
Yeah.
But
Well, and I always have to give the plug of like my grandma was friends with her when they were at Wheaton College.
I forgot about that.
Yes. So it's so funny. My kids in our homeschool group, they have to read the one of her books. Oh, I can't think of which one it is. And so
it's not Passion and Purity, is it?
No.
Okay.
I can't remember what it is, but
Ron.
she but they read it, and so each child when they got to that was like, by the way, guys, my grandma or my great grandma was friends with her. Let me just drop that little nugget
That's
of
so
yes.
funny. Okay,
So
I forgot about that.
so anyways, okay, and then there was one that I want to recommend, but I don't know if you read. It's called Body of Proof, and it's Jeremiah Johnson.
I have read that one.
Okay, good. So I thought that was really, really well done. If you're having, and here's the plug of why I want to talk about that one. I feel like there's, again, a lot of, not again, but I was going to say, again, like you have to be careful with, your resources.
Right.
But if you have questions about Christianity, or if you're wrestling with something, I don't understand why God allows suffering.
Right.
I don't understand why do good people go to hell. Like, and a lot of times, I know when I was growing up, it was like, well, you just have to have faith. You just have to, like, there was no hard answers or answers to the hard questions. And it really, like, honestly, I struggled for a long time when I left home and had to kind of take my faith into my own hands of like, well, I don't know. Am I a Christian just because I was raised in a Christian home? And so it has taken me a long time to get to the point of where, like, no, this is my faith. I believe this. But there are books out there. There's also like American Gospel has some good shows and stuff. Like, it doesn't always have to be books, but there are people out there answering the hard questions. If you have a hard question, you are not the first person to have that hard question. And there, I guarantee you, is someone, multiple people most likely, that have an answer for you.
Yeah.
And if it's not the answer that, like, and that doesn't calm your spirit, then move on and try to find, like, more, like, you can keep going,
Right.
like,
without discrediting just because you have questions or doubts. Yeah.
Right. And so I felt like Body of Proof is an example of one of those books, but he does a good job of, like, the evidence for Christ dying on the cross and why, Christianity is true.
Yeah.
And I would honestly say too, because there's, like, the case for cold case Christianity. Right. Is it the case for Christ? I can't remember what the other. There's, like, books like that where it's like people have gone into, I'm going to discredit Christianity, and they end up becoming Christians because and it's through the research of trying to disprove it that they end up becoming Christians. So if you press into those questions and really spend time trying to find the answers that you're looking for, you can find those answers, and it
Mhm.
will help you grow,
Right.
So
Yeah. His is really good. He's actually Jeremiah Johnston. He actually lived here in the area,
oh,
and then but when I found him, he's now in Dallas, the Dallas area.
okay,
He is actually an apologetics pastor, which I didn't even know
existed.
that existed. But I do think that is becoming more and more necessary to have
yeah,
someone that is strong in apologetics, theology, teaching, and
well, and I think I found him because he was a guest on Elisa Childers' podcast.
yeah.
So, but speaking of apologetics, okay, so the last one that I was going to bring up was Counterfeit Kingdom by Holly Pivot. And this book is so good. It's about NAR, which is the New Apostolic Reformation movement. So this book will probably make some people mad.
It will definitely challenge you.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. Challenge, because I think as Americans, we have kind of like our theology has adapted over the years, and I would say this is all denominations kind of thing,
right?
And has picked up this kind of new agey practice and kind of put a Christian spin on it, and so the Counterfeit Kingdom book, she calls out a lot of, and she wrote it with somebody else, but I didn't write his name.
Yeah.
But they spent a lot of time going through each kind of practice, would you say, that maybe is not lining up with the Bible,
right?
And why it's not lining up with the Bible, and why it might not be something we should be doing.
Yeah. It is. I've read it a couple of times now. I probably need to go back and reread it again. My daughter has read it at age 16.
Yeah.
And she thoroughly enjoyed it. But it is definitely, when I say challenging, I mean it's going to challenge what you think, what you believe. So, does that bring us to the end of our episode?
The first episode of the year. And don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment and all that stuff. Doing those free things, clicking on our links, all that stuff really helps put us in the algorithm for more people to find us. And as much as we love just doing this, it would be super nice if we got a little bit bigger community. So So thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Yay for reading.
Yay for reading. I feel like that should be a staple at the end of our.
I know, it should. Okay. Bye.
Bye, guys.